Hi, everybody. This is Ken Rohla with Fresh and Alive. And today it is my great pleasure to be interviewing Sara Banta of Accelerated Health Products out in California. I'm here in Florida. And gosh, Sarah, I don't remember how we met. I know we kind of met online, probably through email, but I came across your product somewhere. Don't even remember now. But when I started looking over your website and saw what kinds of products you had, and looking at the details of them and then getting some and trying them out and testing them, I could see, number one, you had really great products, top-notch stuff, but also the selection of what you had showed me that you really understood natural health and healing and what's going on with your products. And I've been using Accelerated Silver, one of your products, for years now, and it is one of my go-to products that always have in my house. I literally buy it by the gallon, and when I travel, I always take it with me, because if I come down with some kind of nasty bug, sometimes I'll get biowarfare agents in me, or GMO bugs, real nasty stuff. And if I'm too sick and my stomach is too upset to take other supplements that are stronger tasting or stronger on the stomach, that Accelerated Silver will always start bringing me back and strengthen me up and strengthen my stomach up enough to where I can do other supplements and knock this stuff out. So it's been a huge benefit to me, and I use it with my animals and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to talk about that, some other things today. But at any rate, welcome to the interview.
Thank you, Ken. This is such a pleasure, and I'm so feel so blessed to even have this opportunity with you.
Well, likewise, it's funny. We tend to not appreciate ourselves a lot of time and appreciate our own gifts and talents. And so I can tell you, you definitely have an intuition and a gift for understanding, health and healing and what really works. And actually, it's helped me because, when I'm out researching products, a lot of times it can take a lot of time to look through different products. So it's nice to find people like you who've also gone through and sifted through things and just look at what you're doing and snag some of that and, test it myself and use it myself. So I appreciate what you're doing. So first of all, tell me, I've never met anybody who was a good healer. I don't think I've even met any healers at all who have actually gone to school for healing, for natural healing. Certainly medical doctors, but the best healers I've encountered were people that had to learn how to heal stuff by necessity. So tell us a little bit about how you got into running Accelerated Health products, and kind of what your background is before that and what got you into this.
Well, if you knew me 20 years ago, you would never guess that I would be the one you'd be talking to right now. I was eating awful food. I was microwaving my kids' breast milk, corn dogs out of the freezer for their fuel, because the doctor told me that my son was underweight, quote unquote. Now, mind you, both my husband and my dad are very thin, so you would never think that he'd be underweight and be in a bad state. So going back, I was a go-getter in high school, thought I was going to be in business, wanted to do probably stocks and bonds was kind of where I was thinking my path was going to take me. Went to Stanford, studied economics, psychology, and graduated, went straight to San Francisco to live the city life and burn myself at both ends in the stock and bond business. And then I moved back to Southern California, where then I moved into real estate, which I absolutely hated with every fiber in my body. And the joy of meeting my husband was what kept me here around the same time. And soon after, we got married and had my first child. Now, in the meantime, suffered a lot of digestive issues, hormonal issues, thyroid issues. At the time, didn't really know what was going on, just knew that I didn't feel good. And so had my first child, things were well, but still my personal health was going down, and doctors could not give me any answers, which was very frustrating. The best part, the real telling part was when I went to the same GI doctor every week for 4 weeks. And every time I walked into her office, she needed to know my name again. She needed to give me my history again and again. She did not remember me. And I was so frustrated, and they gave me no answers, which led me to seek out alternative therapy and an alternative practitioner who, within 10 minutes and using the skio machine, diagnosed me. And I started crying because he could tell exactly what was wrong with me. And it was like peeling an onion from then on, as far as getting rid of one issue, and then another issue comes up and surfaces. And it's been a process. But
Okay, so just to interrupt, you said you had a skio scan. Explain to people what a skio is.
A skio is essentially you're hooked up to a computer, and you've got straps on your ankles, your wrists, and your head, and it scans 10,000 items in your body, down to your minerals and your vitamins and your hormones and your thyroid and your liver functions, even to your emotions. There was one time where he could say, "Oh, did you get in a fight with someone today?" Or, something like that. So very telling. And from there, the focus was on me and just trying to heal myself. I was very heavy in heavy metals. And so I went to a place that did chelation. And it was an alternative facility that treated a lot of cancer patients with the accelerated silver. It was a different name at the time. And that's where I was introduced to it. And after that, I realized how powerful it was, and searched out the manufacturer of it and created a relationship with him. And since then, it's not even sold anywhere else. It's me, and I'm the only distributor because of it and because of the relationship. But back up a little bit. When my son was 9 years old, he was a really good student, a good athlete, and he did not want to go to a 20-minute swim lesson. His grades were falling. His teacher didn't understand what was going on. So we did live blood cell. We first did the skio on him, and leukemia came up. Ooh. So we did the live blood cell. And what's shocking is we also did the regular blood panel through Western medicine. No red flags on that test.
Well, I can tell you, I used to work in a hospital blood pathology lab, and those tests are pathetic for finding a lot of things.
Well, I was even shocked that it didn't show up for any anemia, because when you went to see the live blood cell, he was extremely anemic, nutritionally deficient. The blood was super acidic, and there were the cancer cells. And then they said, if you don't
Could you explain to people what live blood cell analysis is, just briefly?
Yes, it's super. You just prick your finger, put a little blood underneath the microscope, and you see the blood right there and then. And I actually have videos on my website that have the before and after pictures.
Oh, and I forgot to tell people your website up front. So what's your website?
acceleratedhealthproducts.com, and it's ACCELERATED. Anyways, his blood was extremely acidic, and when we saw the cancer cells, she says, if you don't do anything now, we're gonna be talking about leukemia in a very serious way within a year. So I started giving him the silver more diligently. I thought at that time I was feeding him well. I had gotten off the corn dogs in the microwave. We were eating cleaner, as gluten-free as I could possibly do, partially organic at the time. I was still on my journey of learning about organic foods and clean eating. But rightfully so. He was eating better than most kids I knew at the time. So his energy started coming back. He was feeling better, and I wasn't real confident until the year had passed and we got his white blood cell redone, and I just started crying. The worst day was the day we first got him tested, when he looked up at me and he goes, "Mom, I'm not worried you're going to fix me." And here I am thinking, oh my God, what do I do for this boy? And please, God, help me. And then the second time when we went back, he was learning about his healthy eating and all this stuff, because he saw the difference in the blood. It was completely alkaline, totally. The cells were plump and dark and nutritionally filled, and there were absolutely no cancer cells in sight. His anemia that was there previously was totally gone as well. And then we did a third, or another test that same day, where we had him take some silver right there and then, and tested him 1 minute later. And the cells are literally running off the page. I mean, it's completely detoxing the blood, flushing things out, and the blood became alive. When I saw that, that's when I started really taking it more often throughout the day, and taking it with my vitamins, because it helps with the absorption of my vitamins. I had been anemic all my life, and my daughter, who is 2 years behind my son, had been anemic since she was a baby, and I had been giving both of us iron supplements and trying to eat the right foods and all that, and nothing would work. So we started the silver on her and me at a more high dose, about 4 to 7 times a day, and within 2 months, our levels were normal, and I've never had a problem since. So it's very powerful as far as helping the absorption of the nutrients. At least that's what we found. So anyways, going forward, my son is now 15 and a half, high schooler. He had played water polo in the past, but he's now switched to crew. The kid, you can't stop him. The endurance that he's got, he has not been sick in, so what is that, 6 years. I mean, has not missed a day of school. So since we've been doing the silver, not only has it cleaned out his blood and the cancer cells are gone, but he hasn't had the common cold. I mean, I don't know how it is in Florida right now, but people are dropping like flies with the flu and the cold symptoms. And I see my youngest, who's bombarded the most because she's in elementary school, come home and just have this glaze over her, like she's been exposed to flu viruses or colds from people at school. But she takes her silver and Restore, which we can talk about later, and she hasn't missed a day of school yet. So it has been a lifesaver. Going through every family member, I truly believe God gave me a set of 5 people in our family with very different constitutions and very different issues, so that I've been forced to learn about how to heal everybody. I mean, I've had my own health issues, but asthma, allergies, never had an issue with that. My daughter came out of the womb, couldn't breathe. I've had nights where I watched her breathe, making sure she was taking her next breath.
Wow.
And she was super anemic, like I had said. She now is playing volleyball and doing swimming and all these athletic things that I couldn't even get her off the couch to ride her bike around the block when she was 4 years old. It was heartbreaking. So she hasn't had an asthma issue or allergies since being on the silver. It's been cumulative. So for her, in the first year or so doing the silver, we do it through the nebulizer and help it get straight into her lungs, and that helped. And I had to do a little bit of Chinese herbal support on days that were really bad, or the weather changed, or things hit her hard. But even on those days now, when I even get triggered thinking, oh no, this is going to be a day where she's going to have trouble, because it is similar to the past, where those days where the weather changed or it started raining, she'd be a disaster. And she just pops out of bed and is ready to go. And I just feel so grateful about that. My husband had, sinus issues and cold sores all the time. Now hasn't had any. He was on antibiotics 3 times a year before any of this stuff entered our house. And that's something that I had never dealt with. So it truly is, I've been forced to deal with all of these issues just within my own house. And to go back to my story a little bit, let's see, with the silver, I started really taking that on and sharing it with friends and family, and then was introduced, of course, to the gold and the platinum. Made the same way, and the gold, noticed that it really helps with calming the mind and anxiety and depression and sleep. And we tested that on the skio machine. I'm not a depressed person, so I didn't think I was going to really feel a difference from it. And the skio just lit up like a Christmas tree. It opened up all of the meridians in my body. I didn't even realize how much benefit I was personally getting from it. The platinum, when we tested on the skio, same results as the gold. My body responded really well, but I didn't even need to be tested to know that. That's the one that I can feel right away. It just makes my brain feel like it's on fire. And absolutely love it, and people really respond well to it.
Let me ask you, with the with the silver, gold, and platinum, can you overdose, or have you overdosed on that? Because quite honestly, I slug this stuff. I mean, I'll tip the bottle back and chug it.
Yeah, people always ask, well, how much should I give my child? How much should I give my dog? Like, do how much you ever, according to your budget. I said, when I first got it, I would give my kids, and they were only 4, 6, and 8 at the time. I gave them little dropper bottles of their own to give them ownership. Say, this is yours, and you're in charge of taking it. There were days that my youngest drank the whole thing. And I felt okay with it. I just tell her she's wasting my money, but at the same time, she's not going to hurt herself. So it'll clean you out. Maybe there's very few people, if they're really loaded with toxins, that they'll get maybe a headache because they're detoxing really fast. It's not going to hurt them. I tell them just to back off if that's the case, or to make sure they're taking the accelerated detox powder, which I have. Soaks up all the toxins really quickly and clears your system without burdening your liver and your kidneys. And that's something that goes into my detox protocol that I now have. So after the silver, gold, and platinum, I was introduced into the collagen supplement I sell, which is the best that I've found out there. And then went on to more the Chinese and Ayurvedic herbal supplements that are on my website too. Just really learning about how they work in the body and testing them on myself and spending lots of wasted money so that my clients don't have to, and figuring out what works, what doesn't. Knowing that my biggest issue coming into all of this was my gut and my digestive system, which you talk to anyone out there now, that's where we're all going wrong, and where disease is the main source of all disease. And I just feel like it was there for a reason, because I just wanted to heal my own gut so badly. I've wasted so much money on good things and bad things to find the things that work. And I finally feel like I have it, and my clients are seeing the difference. So that's where I am now. I was running smoothly. My health was pretty good up until about 2-3 years ago, where I was in a car accident, and my head hit the steering wheel, and had a down to the bone. I had 4 layers of stitches under my eye. And I put the silver on it topically, took it orally, never touched the antibiotic from the doctor. And when I went back within 4 days, he goes, God, that really healed up well. And there was no infection, of course. So, but what was concerning is after that accident, about within 3 weeks, my brain was really suffering from inflammation. I was having depression, anxiety, memory loss. I remember getting out of the shower without washing the shampoo out of my hair. And it was looking at my market list, I would get overwhelmed and I started crying. So the basic functions of life were falling apart. So that's where I was introduced to a more ketogenic, low carb diet, and trying to feel that out and see if that was something that was going to help my head injury. And it did. So diet, it really made it very clear that diet was super important. And I now promote a more low carb diet and healthy fats, and moderate proteins, lots of greens, of course. And I just feel better than I've ever felt. So I feel like every step of the way, there was a learning lesson or some sort of challenge to say, okay, Sarah, time to learn some more. I did go to some schooling during the time where I wanted to make sure I had the backing for what I was doing. And I did the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and another supplement school where we essentially taught you how to be your own doctor through supplements, natural healing. And what was amazing and really reassuring is I felt like I knew about 95% of what I was being taught before going in. So it gave me the confidence that, okay, I can help people and this is what I'm meant to do. And seeing the difference in my kids, that's what's been the most inspiring, because I see so many kids that are suffering so badly with gut issues, and they may not even know it's their gut issues. It may be just coming out as anxiety or depression. And I actually talked to a high school counselor the other day, and I said, gosh, your ADHD rates must be going really high. Are the medications for that skyrocketing? She goes, actually, those have stayed pretty steady and they're high, but the amount of anxiety and depression drugs that are just being handed out to kids is out of control, and it makes me just so sad. And I've done a lot more research into that and how to heal the gut, and use possibly some Chinese herbal supplements for the gold or the platinum and the silver to help these kids feel better. And the wonderful thing about the gold, silver, and platinum is they taste like water. So anyone can take it, whether they're old, young, or like you were saying, when you have the flu and you're nauseous and you can't get any medication down or a pill down or anything, you can take silver. You can take any of them.
That's right. As a matter of fact, today, my office manager was out of work yesterday, sick. She picked up some kind of a really nasty bug from one of her kids. Actually, the whole family's got it. And so she came in this morning, to my surprise, and of course she was in bad shape. So I gave her a big jar of the silver and said, drink this, take it home. And by the way, folks, I mentioned I glug this stuff down, but a little disclaimer, most people shouldn't do that, because most people are pretty toxic, maybe not used to that, and they could have a pretty strong cleanse reaction from something like that. So, take it as directed, and start always with any kind of food or supplement program, start very small and work your way up, so that if you do have any kinds of reactions, they're mild, and then you can back off. So, sorry, continue.
Where was I?
With the kids in school and the rates of ADD and
So what I've found for kids, and it would be different for adults because their systems are pretty clean, but they're eating a ton of junk food, and they've been vaccinated mostly. So their guts are completely ripped apart and have leaky gut. And that was something that I had too, and I could feel it. And what I was searching and searching and searching for was how to heal the gut lining, and I was doing it through the silver, and then my detox powder was helping, but also through a soil-based organism probiotic, and then my regular probiotic, and they definitely helped. Pills aren't great for kids; they don't really want to take them. But I had heard of Restore, which is Zach Bush's supplement out there about when he came out with it, maybe 2-3 years ago. And I thought,
Do you have this on your website?
I do have it on my website now.
And so the supplement's name is Restore.
Restore.
Okay.
It is like dirty water, so it's great because it's a liquid. You don't even have to hold it in your mouth like you do with the gold, silver, and platinum. You just swallow it, kid or adult. But when I first listened to Zach, and he was talking about it on some small podcast that I had heard, I'm like, this is too good to be true. And I kept pushing it away, but I kept hearing more and more about it. And then I hear Mercola talk about it and some other big guys, and I'm thinking there's got to be something to this. So I called the company. I said, I can't commit to a large order. Can you send me a bottle for a month and I'll try it out? And I'll call you in a month. And she said, great, yeah, no problem. 3 days later, I called her and I said, I'm in. I mean, within 3 days, I felt a huge difference. And that's me, who eats very clean. I don't drink alcohol. And I take all the probiotics and everything else to clean out my gut. And I still felt a difference. And I got a couple clients to start taking it, and they would respond, what is this stuff? Because it's life-changing. So what's great about it, and the other thing that was so great is my kids are my test cases. They, I throw things at them and they'll either say, yeah, I'm never taking that again, or what is this, Mom? My daughter came home and she's like, oh, my stomach doesn't feel good. I said, oh, here, take this. And she goes, what is that? I feel better. Like within 20 minutes, it settled whatever was going on in her stomach. They're on it every day. They love taking it because, like I said, it's easy and it tastes like nothing. But what it does is it restores the gut lining. It restores the tight junctions in the gut and doesn't allow any of the proteins get into the bloodstream and cause the autoimmune reaction and the inflammation. And when you have leaky gut, as you know, that's where you're also going to get anxiety and depression, and your serotonin is made in the gut. And so when these kids come to me and they say, or the parents, when say that the doctor wants to put them on medication, I cringe and I say, we will find a solution. Please don't do the medication yet. And I put them on the Restore and the silver and possibly the gold or the platinum, depending on their issue, if it's more ADHD or if it's anxiety or depression. And then, of course, I tell them you got to get the gluten and possibly the dairy out of their diet. And, yes, I'd love them to all eat organic. Yes, I'd love them to be perfectly clean. But I'm just asking them to make small steps. And I want it to not be overwhelming for them and to give them things that are going to work in their lifestyle. That's where I really try to assess a person or a family's lifestyle and how to help them take those small steps first and then continue on the course, so they're not just bombarded with a ton of supplements and a huge dietary change where it's rocking the world. And what I find is moms are very willing, and then they've got the husband that is a little more stubborn, and hey, God gave me my husband for that reason. He is a hard one to convince, but when he's convinced, he's sold. And so I had to know my stuff to really get him involved and on board. And I'd say my kids were on board before he was, which was fine because now he is, and he's never felt better, I would say. But anyways, I always tell the moms, lead by example. Don't expect your husband to jump all in right away. And when he sees a change in you and the kids possibly, he will kind of look over your shoulder and ask what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Now, at your suggestion, I looked at the Restore as well, and it's an extract of lignite, which is a mineral. And one of the things I found very interesting was that they say that the manufacturer says that it can actually remove glyphosates from the body, which are pesticides like Roundup. Have you seen that in your experience working with it?
I can only tell you that I feel a lot better. I feel like my gut is healed. Do I have any scientific proof that the glyphosate is out of my body? I don't know. I do foot baths for detoxing. And when I started it, there was a lot more junk coming out of me. So I can tell you that was definitely a result. Bowel movements for most people are significantly different, especially if people have irritable bowel syndrome, whether it's diarrhea or constipation. And it regulates that and gets a lot more out. So
it helps irritable bowel?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, because that's part and parcel with leaky gut.
Yeah.
And the expansion of the intestinal lining. And I hear people out in the public, and of course you see it. I mean, you go anywhere like in the public that's not a health food store, and you see lots and lots of so-called beer bellies. People referring to them as beer bellies. They're not beer bellies. They're inflamed intestines where you've got this leaky gut going on from eating GMO food, glyphosates, all these different things. Poor microbiome in the gut, all of that is creating these distended colons and intestines and abdomens that so it sounds like that Restore, doing what it does is needed by most people.
It is. I suggest it for everybody. I would have days, even with my stomach being pretty much cured, up until I started taking Restore. I would still have days where I would be super bloated or constipated or have symptoms, depending on, it could have been hormonal or it could have been what I ate, but I had to be really careful still. I don't anymore, and I don't feel any inflammation. My good days far outweigh my bad days compared to even just 4 or 5 months ago. So it's been significant. It has helped reduce my overall inflammation throughout my body. I've felt that. And I would say that people have responded in the same way. I don't know anyone who has said, oh, I don't really notice the difference. So, it's been very helpful. And I feel like the silver is cleaning out your blood. The Restore is helping the absorption of your nutrients through healing the gut and reducing the inflammation in your gut. So your whole system is calming down, and it's not in fight or flight anymore. And the typical woman goes to a restaurant and orders a kale salad or a big salad, and you want to get all those greens in and everything. But if your gut is not healed, that's an atomic bomb. I mean, talk about bloat and stomach issues. You have to be very careful. And I know you are a huge proponent of raw food, but when you've got gut issues, you have to be super careful with what you're eating. And I noticed that that was a big change for me. I don't have to be as careful with eating different vegetables in a certain way. I can be a little more careless. And it's been eye-opening. So with what I really have noticed a difference is the silver cleaning out the blood, the restore healing the gut, and then I've got the detox powder that soaks up all the toxins that you're cleaning out from the silver, and it's taking it through your colon versus your liver and your kidneys having to detox all of those toxins. And then there's, I have a multivitamin electrolyte drink that of the oxalate that I put in my detox protocol just to make sure people are getting the basic vitamins and electrolytes and minerals. And as you know, it tastes good, no sugar, and it's a liquid, so it's easy for kids to take, it's easy for adults to take. And I try to make things user friendly. And on my website, I've got 2 dietary guideline programs, one that's basic and there's a little more freedom, but if someone is really suffering and they need to be a little more careful with their diet, it's more of the autoimmune protocol. And through that and through the detox protocol that I carry, I really see a difference in people's health. And then they start getting their energy back, and if they do choose to eat a more high-fat, low-carb diet, they're amazed at how their sugar cravings go away, their alcohol cravings go away, and they feel good. When I first talk to them, they're like, I eat clean all day, or I'm really good all day, and then I have a skinless, boneless chicken breast with some salad on the side, and oh yeah, I have 4 glasses of wine. And they wonder why they're tired all the time, and why working out for 2 hours a day is not working, and why their hormones are out of balance. And it's all through just readjusting what they're eating and inputting their body, where they can get a more balanced feeling and give their brain the fat it needs to help produce ketones, which then will help satisfy the whole body and reduce inflammation through that as well. I mean, the ketogenic diet is something that really works for me. I know, there's some controversy about it, but it's stabilized my insulin resistance. That's something that also I was suffering from that I didn't mention before. Here I was thinking I was eating super healthy, through my 20s and 30s, and all I was eating sugar, when you break it down, and was not eating enough fat. And now I feel more brain power and physical energy than I've ever felt. And
explain to people, if you would, what a ketogenic diet is.
Okay, so it's not a high protein diet, it's a high fat diet. And I'm not talking about trans fats or going to McDonald's and getting your French fries. It's the coconut oil, olive oil, avocados, the nuts, the eggs. And people think, well, I can't eat like that. And you just, you look at what you can eat, and well, do you want to eat the 4-egg organic omelet with the avocado and guacamole on it with some veggies in there and cook it with some coconut oil? Does that not sound good to you? Or putting MCT oil in their drinks. A lot of people do that as well. And it does promote intermittent fasting a bit, depending on the person. So intermittent fasting would be meaning you're finishing your dinner, say, by 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and then you skip breakfast, or you have a fatty breakfast or a cup of coffee with some MCT oil in it, which some people do. Or there's exogenous ketones, which I find super helpful for people that are switching over from being fully addicted to sugar and carbs to trying to become keto adapted. If you were to do it without exogenous ketones, it would take your body about 4 to 6 weeks to make that adjustment, and you will feel like you have the keto flu. You'll have very low energy, you'll feel hangry, and you probably will not be very fun to live with. So the exogenous ketones kick you into ketosis within 30 minutes. And then that's your springboard to having a more high fat, low carb diet with moderate protein. And what's great too is people will contact me and say, I'm a vegetarian or I'm a vegan, I can't do the ketogenic diet. And actually, when you're in ketosis, your body is not breaking down muscle fibers. So you actually don't need as much protein as you do when you're in the typical diet. So when you're on the typical diet, your body runs out of sugar, fuel, or glucose. And what's it going to go to next to burn? It's going to go straight to your muscles. So it breaks down your muscles to get the fuel to go. And you may have 20 to 30 pounds of fat on your body, but that fat is locked away like the freezer down in your basement full of all of this great food or frozen food. You're just getting your fuel from the pantry. You're not even getting into the fridge when you're burning glucose, right? So we think, okay, well, I'm going to be really good on it today. And you start out, and then 3 hours later, after you have a meal, you're like, I can't go any longer. I'm starving. Well, that's because your blood sugar's on a roller coaster. When you're in ketosis, your blood sugar's stabilized. You're burning fat for fuel. You're burning the fat that you've taken in, but then as soon as you're done with that, your body seamlessly goes to to using the fat from your body stores. And what's amazing too is when it does that, it reduces inflammation throughout the body. The brain is getting ketones for energy, which is actually its preferred fuel. And you could go hours and hours without food if you needed to, but still having great physical and mental energy. I always look at my son as kind of an example, and he's not a kid that wants to lose weight, of course. He wants to put on some muscle. And people say, well, how can I put on muscle without all my protein shakes? And he's put on 15 pounds of muscle since September. So within, 6 months. And he's only 5'8", 5'9", and it's solid muscle. And he uses the ketogenic diet to fuel him for school and for his sports. And I can see it in his skin. It's clear, you fight the teenage acne and that sort of thing. And when he eats right, it shows on his skin. And when he doesn't eat right, it shows on his skin. But there's studies that have been done that it helps with fighting cancer. Cancer needs glucose to survive. So when your body is fueling on ketones, the cancer cells can starve. And with that, and then you put in the silver and you put in the restore, you're really setting your body up for fighting all of disease and inflammation and letting your immune system heal the body on its own the way it's meant to. So you don't need specific little medications or vitamins for each particular issue. And that was something that I found on my journey. I was trying to find, one little supplement that was going to go after this issue, and then something else for this issue, where if you take a step back and you say, wait a second, if I give my body the tools to build up my immune system is going to take care of itself. And that's where I really found a lot of success. So anyways, with the ketogenic diet, you typically try to stay under 20 to 30 grams of carbs, eating as many grains as you want. So I don't count those. I mean, you want to make sure you're eating all of your grains, but you want to put olive oil and coconut oil and avocados and your nuts in there to make sure you're getting the fat. And vegetables can be seen as kind of a fat delivery system. So you're not getting the dressing on the side. You're not using the fat-free dressings. You're using the full fat of everything and moderate amount of protein. If you do eat meat, you'd rather have the organic chicken on the bone with the skin on it versus the skinless chicken breast, or wild fish and the fatty fish. So that's kind of where we're at with the diet. Depending on who I'm speaking to, I tailor it to what they can do. You know, I don't personally eat pork, but if someone says, well, gosh, I can't give up my bacon that I eat every single morning, I'll say, well, let's leave that right now. And let's get things rolling and see how you feel. I had one client, she started 2 weeks ago, and she's just struggling with weight, and she was put on a diet from her doctor. It didn't work. She went on and off drinking versus not drinking. And I laid out what she would be eating. She goes, well, how can I do that? I can't do that. I have these sugar cravings. I said, let's talk in a couple days. And she started, and she goes, oh my gosh, I'm in love with this. I've never felt better. What is all of this? And why is it working? And within a week, I've had a couple referrals from her, and she's losing the weight she wants to lose. But it's more importantly, she's reducing the inflammation throughout her body. She's creating an environment where disease can't survive, and she's not craving alcohol. And this was someone that was drinking quite a bit, and that was common. I had another man contacted me and wanted to do health coaching, which I don't do as much anymore, but at the time I was. And he bought a package of a few sessions together, and we had one session, kind of went through everything, and I hadn't heard from him except for he kept emailing me how good he was feeling and how his belt buckle is tighter than before and his energy's great. And I finally contacted him and said, you know, I will refund your health coaching because it doesn't sound like you need me. It sounds like you're doing great. He goes, I can't believe it, but I'm on the right path and I feel great. So it's amazing what people will do themselves once they start feeling in control. And that's what I found too, is when someone's addicted to sugar and the junk food, they feel like they have no willpower, they feel out of control. And so all of these other parts of their lives are out of control. And once they get this under control and blood sugar is stabilized, like, oh, I am in control. I can do this. What's next? What can I do next? And that's when then you get into the more detailed conversation about organic foods and some of the other stuff that you and I do that's at a more detailed level. So anyway.
Yeah, I think it's important to note too the difference between a healing diet and a long-term maintenance diet. This is where a lot of people get messed up on a raw food or living foods diet, for example, or lots of diets, because a healing diet is very different than long-term maintenance. And especially the more serious the illness is, it's like when I used to do consults, people would come to me. Most of the time it was people with deadly illnesses that didn't have long to live. And so they had to take action quick and get results quick. That's a very different diet than a long-term maintenance diet, or somebody that wants to lose weight, or somebody that's, you know, maybe got some minor health issues that aren't life-threatening. So I think it's important to make that differentiation for people, because people I know are always confused about this diet or that diet or what the other. It is known what is overall healthy for human beings. It's been shown in various studies. But there are different types of diets for different applications, and like the ketogenic diet is very healing and it has specific results.
Right.
And as you mentioned, you know, the challenge with getting somebody on a healing diet is cravings and those kinds of things. And I take a different approach, but I do the same thing. It's like you get rid of the sugar cravings, you get rid of the cravings, you make them feel satiated so they don't want to eat the junk. And like I've been doing a cleanse for the last few weeks, and my wife hasn't been, and she's been going down that path of eating restaurant food and cooked food and junk and sugar and stuff a little bit. And I'm craving healthy food. I'm craving greens and salads and sprouts and those kinds of things. And the food that she makes for herself doesn't even smell good to me.
Right. So. No, I mean, I used to be addicted to sugar to the point where we would test our blood in our house now and say, okay, who's going to have the highest blood sugar after dinner tonight? And I would have a dinner with salmon and some vegetables, and my husband would be able to have the same dinner, and then he had a Snickers bar and maybe some ice cream afterwards. Guess whose blood sugar was higher? It was mine. And it was because of all the junk and the sugar I'd eaten for the years leading up to that, that I had really put myself in a bad position with sugar and insulin resistance.
Yeah.
So I was in a crisis mode and to stabilize my blood sugar. And I cannot tell you how much better I feel. And I crave the fats. I mean, I don't crave the sugar at all. I don't crave the alcohol. That was something interesting, is that I was never a big drinker. But there was a point that I started craving alcohol, and I'd keep it to one drink a day, because I have alcoholism in my extended family, and
And
addiction.
alcohol is converted to sugar in the gut.
Right. So I was really craving the sugar. I wasn't necessarily craving the alcohol, but my husband as well. And when we started this diet, we just both stopped drinking. Did we try? No, it just kind of went away. And it's weird because I feel so good. I'll go to a party and I see everyone drink, and I will maybe get a cup and start taking a couple sips going, this is doing nothing for me. And it's not that I'm against alcohol, there's no judgment, but it just doesn't do me any good anymore. And I don't feel good on it. And I want to feel good tomorrow morning too.
That happened with me with chocolate. Years ago, probably 30 years ago, I was a computer programmer, the quintessential computer geek, and I lived out of vending machines. I ate every morning. My breakfast was a can of Coke and 2 Kit Kat bars. And I couldn't imagine a world without chocolate. And when I started learning about detoxification and healing and all that, and I did it, I just forgot to eat chocolate.
Yeah.
And after a few weeks, I was like, oh my God, I haven't had any chocolate. And I was eating chocolate every day.
Yeah.
So when you get the nutrition in you, yeah, it does. It takes away those cravings and stuff.
And I tell people, don't feel guilty, because sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And we put all of this pressure on people doing drugs and alcohol, saying, why can't they quit their drug? Well, you're over here and you can't quit your drug. So back to a funny story is my dad is very Western, his generation, and we laugh. He will do some of my stuff and he jokes about it, but he is addicted to sugar, and he will need to have some dose of something to eat. That after the English muffin or the chocolate bar or whatever it is. When we go on vacation and I'm cooking his food, he's like, oh, I can't eat all this, because I give him a nice plate of eggs and avocado, or even give him a big piece of salmon with some vegetables and some ghee on it, or cooked in olive oil, and he can't finish his dinner because the fat is what satiates you. It's not the quantity of food. You could eat a whole bag of potato chips, or you could eat one avocado and feel even better. So that's where, with my kids too, it's really helped. That was something I wanted to touch on, because kids are such a big focus of mine. Is people say, well, how can I get my kid to do this? And I think too many parents are really afraid to talk to their kids about this stuff, and they just assume kids eat kid food. They eat the mac and cheese and the pizza and the chicken nuggets. Well, when you go to a restaurant, they can eat off of the adult menu. It's okay. You don't have to give them the food off of the kid menu. But what I have done with my kids is say, look, if you eat that pizza, what's going to happen is your body's going to get inflamed. And for my son, you're going to get a pizza face. For my daughter, you're going to have a hard time breathing. Your lungs are going to be inflamed and your asthma is going to come back. and she's in a really big growth spurt at the moment where her bones hurt. And I say, your bones are going to hurt. Your body's going to ache more. The pain will be there because there's a lot of inflammation. And they all feel it. And I actually want them once in a while to have that food so that they know what the difference is versus not. But when you're talking to your kid and you're having to transform what's going on in a household that has been eating fruit roll-ups and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and that sort of thing, number one, the mom is who is going to the market, and the mom's buying the food and bringing it into the house. So who's in control? Now, you might get some, screams and yells in the beginning at the change. But what happens is, number one, they're not going to starve. These kids need to eat. And if they've got money in their pocket, the money is ultimately coming from you. But what as a parent, you need to not just say, just do this. It's more of, we need to sit down and discuss why. What's going on in the body? Kids want to learn. Kids are hungry for knowledge, whether it's reading in school or whatever it is. And kids want to feel good. I have a mom that came to me, and their son is struggling with anxiety and depression, and she's trying to talk to him about the diet. But the way I look at it is, you've got to get down on his level and say, look, do you like the way you feel? Do you want that to change? And the answer is going to be yes. Now, yes, they've got a sugar addiction because all of the kids nowadays do. So you're going to have to help them work through that. But at the same time, a kid wants to feel good. And if you help change their view of food as fuel and nutrition versus a reward, you're setting them up with the best gift in life. And, people don't think that they can do that. They're afraid of their kids nowadays. I mean, they're afraid to take away their cell phones. They're afraid to get off social media.
When you were talking about this, it reminded me of my own childhood growing up in the South in North Carolina. We was po. We weren't poor, we was po. We couldn't afford the OR. And my mother told us, if we refused to eat what she put in front of us, she'd say, well, when your stomach sticks to your backbone, I'll bet you eat it.
Right.
It's like people are too soft on their kids. You can be kind to your kids and still be the parent. My wife and I don't have kids, but we did raise a 12-year-old nephew for several years. And one of the things that makes a huge difference too is making food that tastes good. We make healthy food, but we know how to cook. Our food tastes better than anything we can get out in the restaurants. And so he never complained about eating any of the food that we made, even though it was healthy. But I did notice one time when we were on vacation, the kid wanted candy. He just wanted candy at every opportunity. And it reminded me of something that Dr. Brian Clement at Hippocrates Health Institute said, and somebody asked him, how do you get rid of chocolate cravings? He said, eat it until you're sick of it. So when we got home, I told my nephew, look, I know you don't feel like you get enough candy, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you to the grocery store, and you can buy all the candy and cakes and soda and junk that you want. But you have to eat all of it, and you can't eat anything else. So we loaded up on this crap, brought it home, and we're having dinner that night, and we're eating our usual food, and he's eating like cake and cookies and drinking his soda and just laughing. La, la, la. The next morning, he was begging for normal food. He started eating his cookies and stuff in the morning for breakfast when we're sitting there eating our stuff. And he's like, can I have some of that? I'm like, no, man, we spent all this money on this food. You got to eat it, man. That's the agreement, And we finally let him off the hook. But I'll tell you what, it rocked his world. And after that, he never begged for candy and crap again. Yeah. And to this day, he doesn't eat much of it.
And as you say that, you can make food taste good very simply. I am not a gourmet cook. I don't bake. Any baking recipe or any baking something or other that is healthy in my house is bought because I just don't bake. But I know a few good things to make, and how to make them good. And when you put coconut oil or ghee or butter or olive oil on food, oh my gosh, it tastes good. Put a little garlic powder and onion powder and salt and pepper, and get the right kind of salt, Himalayan salt. Food tastes good. We had salmon last night. My son asked for extras. We'll get the buffalo steaks. But saying all of that, it doesn't have to be expensive food. You have to think about how much money you're spending on the Pringles and the Fritos and the juice boxes. We don't have juice boxes. My kids drink Oxalent and they drink water. That's it.
Yeah.
Or they'll do a shake of some sort. But they're at the point where at the restaurants, they just ask for water. They're not tempted by the sodas or anything. And they've learned over the years, and it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. So when someone says, well, gosh, this is overwhelming, take a few things that you're going to change this week.
Exactly.
And build on it. And
that's it. I tell people, if you're not dying of something,
right,
then, you can start adding in good things and start letting go of some of the really bad things. And over time, and also what I found too, is that detoxifying the body, the more you detox, that naturally changes the body chemistry, changes the microbiome in the gut, which is what makes you crave foods. It's the bacteria in your gut that's making you crave those things, like candida makes you crave sugar. That and mineral deficiencies are really what are the driving force behind cravings. And so that's one of the reasons why I love Oxylent. Between mineral supplements that I use and the Oxylent, getting the electrolytes in, those electrolytes, not only do they give you minerals, but they deliver electrolytes into the cells so that nutrients can get into the cells and waste can get out. And energy is developed in those cells through the production of ATP, thanks to those electrolytes. So when you've got all that going on, number one, you have energy, but also those cravings go away. So that's a huge important point of this, is that, along with what you've been talking about, the minerals, the electrolytes, and when you turned me on to the Oxylent, I was already using some other products that were pretty good, but that Oxylent is the best electrolyte drink mix that I have seen anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. And to that point, when someone starts doing my program and they feel great the first couple of days, and then week 2, they come back to me, go, God, I'm really tired. I feel very fatigued. And I'll ask them, well, are you adding Himalayan salt to your food? Because you do need more salt when you're on a low carb diet. Your kidneys let go of the salt in your body. But then are you doing your Oxalent? And they'll say, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And that's it right there. Their energy comes back up. I mean, it's such a small detail, but it's so important. And sometimes when I'm feeling fatigued, I'll just put a little bit of Himalayan salt on my tongue. And it's amazing what energy that'll just give me, and playing around with that. So.
Now, one of the things that impressed me about you, as I know that you're using the SCIO for doing scans and analysis on yourself and your kids. Are you a SCIO practitioner?
No,
okay. I'm not either. I mean, that's a full-time career unto itself. And I've got a friend who does it for me. But what are some of the kinds of things, have you had clients or family or people tested with the SCIO, and what other kinds of tests have you used on people, and what kinds of things do you see, like before and after, with what you've done?
Blood sugar was black and white. Hormonal regularity. So my hormones were out of whack, and they came right in line. And that was after trying to use Chinese and Ayurvedic herbal supplements to balance them out. And that was that definitely helped with that. My thyroid, with supplements that I've used, the before and after definitely showed a difference. Heavy metals. That was where I was really first clued in on how heavy I was in lead, aluminum, and mercury.
So is it primarily Restore that got rid of the heavy metals?
No, this was way in the very beginning, and I actually then did the test where you collect your urine for over 24 hours and send it in. And then that's when I went to that facility to get the chelation done, which I thought was super interesting. And it was a huge lesson in detoxification in general, where my levels were high. And then I started the chelation process and took a test, and they got higher because all of these heavy metals were introduced into the bloodstream, trying to get out of the body. And then the final test, obviously, they were in a normal range.
Yeah.
So people do ask me, well, during the detox program, why am I feeling worse before I feel better? It's because all of these toxins are being pulled out and the body is trying to get rid of them. And then I mentioned my son and his situation with the SCIO. With my daughter, it would show her asthma and her inflamed lungs. There was one time that was very interesting where she had a cough, and I thought, oh shoot, this is a lung issue, and it was her kidneys. I think an infection in her kidneys that was pushing up on her lungs and causing her not to be able to take that full breath. And I came home thinking, if we had gone to a regular doctor, we would have been treated for a cold. And she didn't even have a virus, a bacteria, nothing. It was pretty awesome.
That's one of the things I love about quantum biofeedback devices, is that they can tell you everything. And, you know, the medical establishment poo-poos them because they don't understand them. And actually, they've never used them. In my experience, the medical doctors I met, very few that I have, know that they work. It's vibrational medicine, and you know it's too complex to get into here. But I've been using SCIO and other quantum biofeedback devices for many years, and I use other tests as well. I use good old-fashioned lab tests and things like that. But like when I'm when I'm testing supplements, for example, quantum biofeedback will confirm or give me a starting point to confirm whether or not I should pursue more testing with supplements on people. So it's a really useful tool. And even if you, let's say you're a medical doctor, or whatever, and you don't want to use that as a quote diagnostic, because it's not FDA approved as a diagnostic tool, but it is a good screening tool to give you an idea of where to do other testing, so you spend your money more judiciously on testing, or supplements or whatever.
Yeah, and that's what I found. I mean, I will follow up things with blood tests if I need to, if something is trigger or is showing up on the SCIO and it's a little more serious. And it's always great to have that confirmation that both tests are showing the same thing. But the detail of what the SCIO can tell you is just remarkable.
Yeah, and because it's a scalar energy device, basically, as you mentioned, it's a combination of computer software on a computer and this hardware interface that connects to these straps with these, the straps are electrodes that wrap around your ankles, your wrists, and your forehead. And scalar energy is this subtle energy that is really superluminal light. But the machine, because if you look at the periodic chart of elements, all the elements at the atomic level have a vibrational frequency. And this is like mainstream physics. This isn't anything esoteric. So it's known that all the elements have a vibrational frequency, a unique one of their own. And so what the SCIO and these other machines do is they look at the atoms in the body of all these elements, and they can see the vibrational frequencies. And so it can identify, for example, if you got two hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom combined, then you've got an overall resonant frequency that's water. So the SCIO and these biofeedback devices have these huge databases with thousands, hundreds of thousands of measured frequencies of different materials, diseases, cell types, organs, organ systems, overall, all kinds of stuff, emotions, because emotions are actually a form of scalar energy. And when you're hooked up to the machine, it's looking at what it's seeing in you vibrationally and comparing it with its database of known values. And it goes, oh, well, okay, there's some cancer cells. There's a frequency of cancer, so there's some cancer cells there or whatever. or it can see the lack of, you know, nutrient or something like that. So for people listening, that's basically how these things work. And so they can be very telling and very useful when combined with other, you know, FDA approved diagnostics to help you figure out what's really going on. Because I know from working in hospitals, I worked in hospitals for 13 years. I worked in the medical system for 23 years, and I worked in a pathology lab, and I did the testing. And I know that very often medical diagnoses are wrong. And so you need as much data as you can get to figure out what's going on with these, you know, within the body. The cool thing though about the SCIO, because it measures scalar energy, and the emotions and brain waves are scalar energy, is it can measure emotional stuff. You know, it can tell what's going on emotionally. And I found this out too. It can even detect if there are, quote, ghosts in the room. It's like apparently non-physical beings, they're composed of this kind of energy as well. And so I haven't had any scientific validation of that, but I think it's an interesting concept.
Well, I haven't had the experience with the ghost, but I can tell you with the emotions, it's amazing what it can come up with. When we would do it with my kids, you know, I know something's going on, or maybe there's some frustration, hidden frustration, maybe towards me or whatever it is. It's going to show up on the screen, and I can't deny it. You know, as a mom, for instance, if that's what happens, that's what it is. Or this was really interesting. After my car accident, my daughter was in the car with me, and we were rear-ended at 50 miles an hour. I was at a stoplight, and the guy was on his cell phone and hit us at 50 miles an hour. And I was really worried about my daughter. She actually talks about how when it happened, she was looking in the rearview mirror, or the side mirror, and saw the car coming. She knew it was going to happen. Mm. She retells the story as seeing this happen from outside the car. So she was out of body, essentially, as she was looking down on the car, watching it happen. It's been very traumatic for her, because she didn't get injured per se. There was no blood on her, but with my cut here, even though it was a minor, I shouldn't say minor, but a small cut, my whole face was bloody. So she saw her mom in this state, and it was very traumatic for her. So with the SCIO, we took the shock out of her. There was a lot of fear and things that she had to recover from. And, you know, I kept thinking, I need to take her to a therapist to make sure we get through this. I don't want this to come up 30 years later. And the SCIO really helped take that shock out of her and treat her emotions and her memory of it. That was probably the most important day with the SCIO, and how it has treated some sort of emotional healing. And I've seen things with it healing relationships with parents and things like that, where it shows up that there's a struggle there, and let's deal with it. So it's a remarkable machine.
Okay, well, I know you've got to get going. So anything that we haven't talked about that you want to mention to folks before we go?
Gosh, you know, I would just, my biggest thing would be to take a step back, and for whoever is watching this, at whatever stage they're in, that they would try to do some sort of change to better themselves, because as they progress and with better health, they'll feel better, they'll get more out of their quality of life and relationships, and the world is really going in the wrong direction. The kids gosh, with the statistics and kids and autism and all the diseases and obesity and type 2 diabetes starting so young, our kids and the cell phone usage and technology, it's really going in the wrong direction. So yes, you're going to have to be going against the tide. And that's something else I've had to talk to my kids about, is like, you're going to go to the party and your friends might be making fun of you because you're not eating what they're eating. Be okay with being different. Be okay and quietly just be humble and do your thing. Don't point fingers. Don't start lecturing them. Do your thing and just maybe lead by example. And it's okay to be different. My kids are not on social media, and they're not going to be. I mean, there was a point in time where I was contemplating it, but I just see these kids with their neck. We call it the self
Prone position.
Great. Take a cart full of kids to volleyball practice, and some of the kids are just staring at their cell phones when they've got their friends right next to them. So there's certain things where, you got to be okay with being different. The world is going in the wrong direction. And if you're going to be healthy, if you're going to be happy, you've got to be okay with being different.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I often tell people, anybody who's ever done anything worth a damn in human history, we're different. People that are average are average. And they have average diseases and average depression and average, everything. So I'm in total agreement with you. Well, we'll put your website, we'll link your website wherever we post this video, and we'll splash it over the screen at the beginning and end and middle, so that people won't forget your website. But tell us again your website.
Accelerated Health Products, ACCELERATED healthproducts.com.
Okay. And you don't do individual consults any longer?
I haven't. I found that I don't have much time for it. I am willing to do group sessions if there's a group of people that want to do a session together. And I'm thinking that if there is an interest in it, I may start doing those on a more regular basis.
Okay. And can you do webinars and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to start doing more of those.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I'm glad I finally got to interview you, and we'll stick this on my blog and YouTube channel, and you can put it wherever you want to put it, and more people get more help from you.
Thanks, Ken. It's been such a pleasure. And
likewise, dear, likewise. And I'm going to get out there to California soon and visit with you guys.
Do.
All right. And you're welcome to come to Florida and hang out too.
I would love to. I don't think I'll be going anywhere very, very soon, just with my kids and family.
Yeah, I can relate. All right. Well, thanks so much. And we'll talk to you later.